And long story short, it's so simple. You can create manga by only needing to memorize these 4 types of blocks. Hello everyone. This is mangaka Boichi. Hello director, how are you?
Hello, Sensei! Today's video is manga tutorial time.
So today's video is for tutorial. Indeed, I've been preparing for today's topic. I've been discussing and deciding with the director.
So, what topic do you plan to tutor today?
I've had many thoughts about which topic to choose for the first class. Typically, I intend to select topics based on questions asked in the YouTube comments and proceed with those. However, for today's inaugural lecture, instead of relying on questions, I recalled something during conversations with aspiring manga artists from around the world. I thought, this is something that everyone needs, so I've decided to pick one. That is a very easy way of manga paneling. Not just paneling, it's a very easy way. Because manga paneling is very painfully difficult. Paneling is, always, extremely challenging.
Yes, it's difficult.
But does it have to be so difficult? Isn't there an easier way? That's what we're going to talk about today. There are many people curious about paneling. Paneling is, there's a fundamental unit. Then what is the basic unit? That is the page. Here we have Dr. Stone. Paneling in a page is divided into the basic unit of 1 page at a time with cuts. That's what panel cutting is. However, in the global, yes, there are people who want to draw manga. People who want to do paneling by dividing the unit of a page with panels like this. They might face even more difficulties. And I'm sure many aspiring manga artists in Japan also find paneling challenging. They want to try paneling, but it's very difficult. Yes, I can definitely say it's very challenging. But what if we can start to study paneling in an easy way? Once I heard this story in Korea. There's the fear of blank paper. Some people are scared to see a blank sheet of paper and try to draw on it. Many aspiring manga artists feel tremendous pressure in front of a blank sheet of paper. It's so scary to see the empty white paper. They feel scared to start paneling and drawing. I'm not sure if aspiring manga artists overseas have had similar experiences or fears. But if you have, please leave your comment. I would really like to know. Anyway, I've been thinking about ways for you to start paneling quickly and without fear. The best way is simply to just draw as many as you can. To be honest, I haven't experienced the blank page syndrome. The reason is that I started drawing manga with stories when I was 10 years old. I began drawing gradually at the age of 10, and from the age of 11, I created manga ranging from 400 to 500 pages every year. For 10 years until I was 20, I created between 4,000 and 5,000 pages of story manga. Mostly, they were rough drawings and thumbnails. I would roughly outline the story and then draw while thinking about whether to add dialogue or which scenes to include. It was all about drawing as it came to mind. Once, I even completed a 64-page manga in just 2 days. Back in my second year of high school, when it came to drawing manga, I would draw 1 page, then the next page, and continue drawing like that. It wasn't about drawing detailed scenes. I just put my ideas down on paper. Because I drew like this, I didn't really experience any fear of the blank page. Personally, it's a valuable experience to draw extensively like this. I wouldn't recommend everyone to draw like what I did. So I was thinking about whether there's a fast and easy way for everyone to do paneling. And while pondering if such an easy method existed, I realized something. Wait a minute. It seems like there are patterns in paneling in manga. I realized that. By combining several fixed blocks, it seems like we can do most of the paneling in manga. As I looked closely, there seemed to be a few. Just 4 types of blocks. Wouldn't it be great to have just 4 things to do anything in this world? Cool, isn't it? Of course, not everything in manga is made up of just 4 types of blocks. It's much more diverse. But I think about 80% of paneling could somehow be filled with those 4 types of blocks. Still, wouldn't it be great if 80% were covered when starting? Just filling it with these wouldn't be a big problem. So, today, I'll show you these 4 types of blocks and how to use them. And long story short, it's so simple. You only need to memorize about 4 types, and there are 2 more extra types. So it could be 6 types. Then you place 1 to 3, or if needed, 4 blocks per page. Fill the page with blocks. That's it. So simple. You can completed the paneling for 1 page.
Interesting!
Exactly. And I think many professional mangaka and story writers are probably using this method without even realizing it. Because I do it myself. As I reflected, I realized that I was doing manga paneling like that. That's how I've been doing. I wonder if many other artists are also doing the same. Well then, let me show you what types of blocks while explaining them. First, let me explain what the blocks are. The first block type is block type number 1. A single panel. A box. What? Oh yes. Is this a joke? Too easy. Yes, it's so easy and simple. So, what's block type 2?
2 panels?
Bravo! You're right. I bet everyone has guessed it, right? Block type 2 consists of 2 panels. Now, what about block type 3? It is even simpler than block type 2. We're dividing the large box into 3 parts. As you already know, the block is a box shape. Of course, panels in manga don't always have to be boxes. For now, I'm explaining the simplest and easiest method. Actually, panels don't have to be box shapes. But let's consider them as boxes for now. After all, we're currently learning the easiest paneling method. Block type 4 was suggested by our director. It consists of 3 panels with horizontal and vertical lines. Draw a big T inside the box. 2 click buttons. It looks like a computer mouse. This is the body. And 2 click buttons on the mouse. Alright, dividing panels using these 4 types of blocks covers 80% of it. This is block type 1, a single panel. It can be either vertical or horizontal. You can rotate the blocks to make them wide and narrow. You see? Block type 2 is easily transformed by just rotating it to change the vertical divide line to a horizontal one. After that, you can adjust the size of each panel as needed. You can make one box big and the other small by moving the divider horizontally. Of course, there must be the opposite as well, right? Sometimes panels are divided diagonally, right? Now, let's talk about block type 3. Just rotate it in a circle and turn it 90 degrees. I'll write 90 degrees here. The blocks can rotate by 90 degrees. It is important. You can split it into 3 parts using this feature. And yes, you can adjust the size of the block to fit this division. You can also make one side bigger and the other smaller. These changes show how versatile the block is. You can make blocks like this too. Rotating or transforming the block by 90 degrees opens up many possibilities. Simple, right? Block type 4 can also be easily rotated using a simple and easy method. You can make blocks like this too. You can also divide it into dynamic diagonal panels. These panels you commonly seen in manga. Very commonly. But the most of these shapes aren't block type 4. It could be the block type 1 or type 2. So, what is it exactly? I'll explain it later. Anyway, the manga paneling is quite easier than you think, right?
Wow! Drawing manga panels using just these 4 block types seems incredibly easy.
See? Now, let's assemble them on a page. Imagine this a manga page. It is my screen represents 2 pages, but let's treat it as 1 page. Let's split that single page into 2. On the top, put the block type 2. On the below, put the block type 3. Can you see it? Easy, right? Then, for many reasons, the panels can be drawn in or out, within the inner frame or out. What do you think?
Good to know.
It's actually quite simple. It's very easy. That's the point. Shall we try one more example? Let's see. Here's a manga manuscript paper. It has an outer frame and an inner frame. Shall we split it vertically in half? And let's place block type 1 in the right. This is block type 2, and this one is block type 3. Which block type should we put in the left? How about block type 4? By paneling within the inner frame and inserting panels that extend beyond the inner frame, block type 1 fits within the inner frame. What do you think? Creating a simple manga page is easy, isn't it? With just these 4 types of blocks combinations, you can draw manga. Now, how do you stack them? Earlier, I showed you how to divide a page in half and stack each type of block on the right and left sides. Here's something you should remember. Manga typically follows a fundamental structure of rows. In the past, manga panels were often laid out like this. Okay, here is a manga page like this. This represents 4 rows. 4 rows. You can see 4 rows resulting in 8 panels. Nowadays, most modern manga use 3 rows. These rows are made horizontally. You can also divide them in half, resulting in 3 rows with 6 panels. Sometimes for larger panels, with detailed drawings, you might see manga with 2 rows. 2 rows and 4 panels. Manga from the 1950s until now, about 99% of manga follow these basic row patterns. Pretty interesting, right? Now, you might wonder, are there no modern manga that use 4 rows? Actually, there are. For example, if I create a manga with my avatar, while it might fit into a 3 rows format, using a 4 rows panel layout could also work as well. So, 4 rows manga can certainly exist in the modern era. When you're placing blocks within a page, you should first consider the basic rows of your manga layout. Most manga are divided into 3 rows. Therefore, when stacking blocks, aim to arrange them to fit within these 3 rows. Here, I divided it like so. Then, I placed block type 2 on the top. Now, below here, I could insert 2 simple blocks like this. But it's more comfortable to add simple blocks like this. Wait, it's actually only 2 rows, not 3. I'm sorry. My mistake. Let me try again. Well, isn't this clumsiness another form of fun to do YouTube? This time, I'll properly align it with 3 rows. It should be like this. I placed block type 2 in the top. Let's insert another block type 2 below. 1, 2, 3. 3 rows, right? Now, let me ask a question to you. Imagine a manga with paneling like these. Should we dissect it like this? Or perhaps like this? Now, imagine a manga structured this way. It has 4 rows, right? Would you classify this as a 4 rows manga? Or is it a 3 rows manga? By now, you likely know why I'm asking, and I'm sure you already know the answer. Even though it seems to have 4 rows, it's actually 3 rows. That's because I've divided the second block in the center like this. Do you follow? So, when considering the fundamental rows, if you're uncertain, if it's difficult to understand, just consider it as 3 rows for now. Then, fill each row with blocks accordingly. Now, I'll show you how this is actually used in real manga. I've gathered statistics from Volume 3 of one of my favorite series, Kaiju No. 8, to observe the frequency of block type 1, 2, 3, and 4. Keep in mind that the numbers I've counted may not perfectly match yours, and I'll explain why. Understanding the significance of these blocks is crucial. So, when I've counted the panels in Kaiju No. 88 Volume 3, block type 1 appeared 118 times. Block type 2 appeared 143 times. Block type 3 appeared only 21 times, which is relatively few. Block type 4 appeared 61 times, also quite sparingly. Block type 4 is less commonly used in most manga, as it's considered a somewhat old-fashioned method. Because it's old-fashioned way to editing panels, it's not commonly used nowadays. Using block type 4 excessively can make the manga appear a bit boring. As for block type 5, I've treated it faintly, and I'll explain why. Why it faintly? And block type 6. This type of block appears only once in Volume 3. Then there's a small panel inside the big panel. This was also appeared only once. That's how it's laid out. So, as I mentioned earlier, about 80% of it fits within these paneling categories. That should be more than 80%, right?
I think it seems around 99%.
Now, what is this faintly block type 5? Block type 5 is this. It is simply. In modern manga, block type 5 typically refers to this cross shape. However, this cross shape is not the perfect cross. Somehow it's drawn a bit unevenly. 4 panels. This block type consists of 4 panels. Because it's simpler to understand it as just 2 block type 2 are combined. You might be wondering, what's the difference between them? Well, this is the best part. What is the significance of block type 1, 2, 3? What exactly are we using to create these blocks? Let's consider a page divided into 3 rows as an example. Block type 1 on the top, block type 1 on the center, and another block type 1 on the below. Is it that 3 block type 1 were used? No. Did we put a rotated block type 2 and block type 1? No, it's not. It's just block type 3. It's block type 3 with rotated 90 degrees. So, what exactly is this? Well, it could be any of those possibilities. What distinguishes them is their representation. And that's directly tied to the meaning of the blocks. It seems to be a combination of blocks that I've identified. In most manga, these blocks signify a scene transition. The blocks are the fundamental units of storytelling. with dialogue going back and forth. The blocks serve as a structural element of the story. Consider one scenario and another scenario. A block represents one scenario. So, when you're stacking blocks, you're essentially breaking down the story. Any dialogue or actions, any situation description, like this. If two people are having a conversation going back and forth, then that's one block. You're putting one piece of the story into one block and combining them on one page. Do you understand? Is it difficult? Now, what exactly is this? If you were to inquire which among block type 1, 2, or 3 it falls under, if it's segmented as one narrative unit, if it's delineated as one narrative piece, then it's block type 1, 3 instances of it. If there's a dialogue exchange, and it shifts to the next scene, then it's block type 2 followed by block type 1. If it concludes with a continuous dialogue flow, then it constitutes a substantial block type 3. Block type 3 occupies an entire page. When I tallied the blocks in Kaiju number 8, I categorized them according to the story unit. That's how I segmented them, but if you opt for a different segmentation, the count of these blocks would vary. In my analysis, I found that it could be segmented in this manner. It makes sense, right? Now, let's talk about block type 5. Now, do you understand why block type 5 is treated as non-existent? In modern manga, depicting a single scenario with dialogue, for instance, a conversation between two characters, going back and forth, spanning 4 panels is quite uncommon. Why? Because readers find it dull. Drawing out dialogue like this becomes tiresome, so we need to break it up at least once. Or it's preferable to condense it into a 2-panel sequence, merging 2 panels of a scenario into one to avoid monotony. That's why in modern manga, you won't see continuous sequences of 4 panels flowing in the same manner. Hence, block type 5 is considered non-existent. Even when split into 2, with 2 characters exchanging dialogue, there's a brief pause, followed by a shift to a different situation. But the conversation continues naturally. For example, in the preceding scene, they weren't arguing. However, in the subsequent scene, they start arguing. The tension goes up. Once again, in 2 panels, they're engaged in conversation. But dividing it into 2 is a trend and characteristic of modern manga. That's why block type 5 is considered non-existent. Well, block type 5 is indeed used, but very rarely. If you believe block type 5 is useful, then feel free to use it. However, personally, I would stick to memorizing the 4 types. Managing 5 types is beyond my level. By committing these 4 types of blocks to memory and regarding them as the fundamental components of manga, you can arrange 1 to 3 blocks on a single page. This approach covers most storytelling needs. Don't overcomplicate it. Just give it a try. It is very easy. And last, in professional work, determining the actual page layout involves considering not only the story blocks but also numerous other factors. In the realm of professionals, segmenting a page into panels involves dealing with many complex and challenging factors. That's why paneling is referred to as directing. So, rather than using the term paneling for organizing the layout of panels on a page, I suggest referring to it as montage. Paneling denotes the physical act of dividing panels on a page. while employing panel segmentation as a form of direction is termed montage. That's my proposal. The term montage is borrowed from film editing technology, which in itself originates from the language of visual arts. The rationale behind suggesting montage for manga paneling is rooted in the global manga industry, with the aim of fostering the world of toon and advancing manga concepts through education and development in the global market. I advocate for using montage as a manga layout and editing concept, so I'll choose to refer to it as montage instead of paneling from now on. Why? Because all paneling is a form of directing. So that's what we discussed today. Did you find any of that informative?
Yes! I understood very well, even though I'm a beginner who doesn't know much about manga because you explained it very simply and clearly.
Then do you mind about making your debut as a mangaka around next year?
If I try storyboarding, maybe.
I'm glad you brought it up. Because there aren't many story writers in the manga industry who create the storyboard. This is my personal view, but if the original story writer can create the storyboard, it becomes a tremendous asset and significantly enhances understanding of the manga. Most importantly, writer becomes the actual owner of the manga when they create the storyboard. When making manga, whether 2 or 3 people are working together, the person who leads the manga is. The actual owner of the manga work is. The person holding the key of the manga is the one who creates the storyboard. Since you're already going to be a part of the manga industry as an original creator, why not consider creating the storyboard? Wouldn't it be wonderful to become the owner of the manga? It would be your very powerful weapon. Moreover, the job of a mangaka is very demanding due to the amount of labor involved. If you can create storyboards and provide them, and if through that process your understanding of manga as an original creator significantly improves, it would be very helpful. Everyone is happy. You might find creating storyboards daunting, or end up creating predictable ones, thinking, I'm the original creator, so this much should suffice, right? Of course, such you might think like that, but what if you could create storyboards at a level that you can use in your manga using these 4 types of blocks? Wouldn't that be great? It would be beneficial for the mangaka, beneficial for the original story writers. Alright, I hope today's lesson is helpful for everyone, especially for aspiring manga artists in Japan and around the world who are just starting out. Even if you haven't drawn manga panels yet but you want to. I want to draw a 64-page story manga like Boichi did. I hope you found this montage lesson useful. And if there are easier and more useful methods, please let me know too. Thank you for watching and see you next time.